Terrible news for Seaspiracy fans, a marine biologist has gone and debunked the entire movie. So let's take a look at what he has to say. The subheading on this article is that giving up seafood isn't the best way to save the oceans. It's a hell of a claim. Let's see him substantiate it. First, Seaspiracy apparently has a problem with facts, and the first one that this author talks about is that by 2048 the oceans will be empty, when actually it's going to be 10% of what it once was, not zero. So it's a bit like going to someone's house for a bottle of wine and they've already drank 90% of it, and you're like, why did you drink all the wine? And then this author's like, oh, actually they only drank 90% of it, so you still got 10% to drink. I mean, it's still a huge problem, isn't it? So it's not really changed much of the message. But that's just the first one. The next one is that the film claims that 48% of the animals that we catch are bycatch and discards. And this guy wants to make the distinction that discards are the animals we don't want and we throw them back in the ocean. Some are alive, some are dead, doesn't matter. And the rest of that 48% are taken to market. Okay, so we're still taking all these animals out of the ocean, which still has an environmental effect and obviously an effect on these animals' lives too. And actually what this guy is saying is worse than what the movie is saying. At least some discards have some chance at life afterwards, you know, but you take the fish to market, you're still destroying the environment. The most glaring factual error is the film's claim that sustainable fishing does not exist. Now what they're talking about is that you can have so many fish, they breed this much every year, which means that you can take this many and you will still have the same amount of fish, right? Which sort of works in principle, I guess. But at the current rate, it's not really possible because the oceans are so depleted now. We would have to wait a number of years before we're able to do that again. Now, this guy doesn't mention oceans, which is convenient. He talks about fisheries. Now, with fishery, it kind of makes sense because you can have this many fish. The way you get more fish is you put them in and you take fish out, right? You can keep that at about the same level. So I do acknowledge that. But this word sustainable doesn't really work when we're eating things like salmon, which are carnivorous, and they need to eat other fish, most of which are wild caught. So we're taking more fish out of the ocean to feed farmed fish. So it's not sustainable in the amount of fish. And also, like we saw in the film, there's a huge environmental impact too. So while sustainable fishing might theoretically be a real thing, it doesn't exist really right now. So this guy says that his main problem with Seaspiracy is that the makers want us to believe that not eating fish is the central way that we should go about fixing the problems that industrial fishing creates for the ocean. I don't know if this guy's heard of supply and demand, but if we stop demanding fish, they stop fishing. It's that simple. We demand fewer fish, they go out into the sea fewer times, they get smaller nets, they catch fewer fish. This guy goes on to pay some lip service to vegetarians and vegans, but says that it's a position that only a small fraction of the population of wealthier countries will take. I don't know where this myth comes from that veganism is expensive, but the cheapest things in the supermarket are pasta, rice, bread, vegetables, legumes. It's just like any other diet, it's as cheap as you want it to be. Maybe the misconception comes from the fact that vegan cheeses and vegan meats can be more expensive, but they're not required to be healthy. And actually the healthiest diet, whole food plant-based, would probably be the cheapest bet anyway. When you decide on an absurd policy, I don't know why he thinks it's absurd to say, I'm not going to eat fish, I'm going to eat literally any other food in existence. But this writer takes issue with Seaspiracy attacking several of the NGOs in ocean conservation, including the Plastic Pollution Coalition and Oceana. Now, the reason the Seaspiracy attacks NGOs is that NGOs do not seem to address the real issues. They want people to stop drinking from plastic straws, which creates 0.03% of plastic pollution, but they don't talk about the huge amount of plastic nets in the ocean, which according to this guy is at 20%, which is less than the film claimed. But it's still 20% of the plastic in the ocean, and it's entirely avoidable if we stopped eating fish. He's got this section that says Asian people are not the enemy of ocean conservation. I'm not sure the film thinks that either, to be honest with you. Another major problem I have with this film is how breezily it uses anti-Asian tropes to make its points. In this movie, everyone who is Asian is seemingly a villain. I'm not sure if this person skipped the section on slavery in Thailand, because they spoke to a lot of victims who happened to be Asian, so they certainly weren't the villains of the piece. His first example is a Japanese fisher brandishing a knife as he approaches the camera. Japan is mostly populated by Japanese people, so I'm not really surprised that the guy was Asian. And they were filming a secretive undercover investigation, so I'm not surprised that there were threats. If they were in the editing room and they saw this footage of a Japanese man walking towards the camera with a knife, and they said, whoa, 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 we don't want to paint Asian people in a bad light, so we best not show this part, That would be racist in itself, because you're editing based on race. And also, I don't think people watching this are watching this and going, oh wow, Japanese people are lunatics running around with knives. Like, it's one guy. Next, we got a shop owner shooing away the film's narrator from his Hong Kong store. This is to do with shark fins, which is kind of secretive on its own. So again, I'm not really surprised they were shooed away for filming in there. And the last one is the obviously Asian seafood trade show rep. So as far as I could tell, the guy was Thai, and the reason they spoke to him and not some white guy is because he was a representative of a Thai seafood company, and they were talking about slavery on Thai fishing boats. It wouldn't make sense to go to some American and ask him. I think this guy created this racist sub-narrative in his own mind, because the makers of the movie are vegan. They're not even speciesist. Again, he claims that only the privileged can give up fish, and that 85% of the planet will continue to eat fish. I don't know where he got 85% from, and I disagree that a plant-based diet is privileged, but that aside, if you eat fish to survive, this movie isn't trying to make you give up fish. The message I wish the filmmakers had conveyed instead is that pushing for legislative changes and improved enforcement of existing laws is the best way to get involved. This guy is a fish eater. He doesn't want to stop eating fish, he wants to push the blame. There are multiple ways to fight a problem, and supply and demand is a decent way to do it. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you check out one of my other videos. Make sure you let me know in the comments what you think about this article. It's going to be linked in the description. Of course, subscribe, hit the bell and all that stuff, and I'll see you next time.